Correct, it is. Okay, so speaking of Firebase, Firebase is simply an app platform. It's an app development platform, and to make it easier for you to build, your front end without necessarily using or needing a backend. So it will serve as a backend for you. It's mostly used by front end and mobile developers because then you don't necessarily need to build like a backend server. You can deploy your database, you can write functions, you can deploy those functions on Firebase, and then you can call those functions from the front end application. So you see, you can check this website out, firebase.google.com. You can check out the video here. You can also try a demo, click on it, and I already have an account, right? So you definitely have to create an account. Of course, with your Google account, right? You just set up your account, and then in order to access the dashboard, you click on Go to Console. And this is just a very simple introductory session. We're not going to really write any code or build anything here. We'll do that in the next session. But yeah, you can check this detail. I always love to read some of these things because then you will be able to understand, like, the reason for the existence of some of these platforms, because the developers will definitely explain this to you. So you can actually build on Firebase. You can set up authentication. You can create users. You can even do what we call federated authentication, where you had external authentication source, like signing with social media and those kind of stuff like Facebook, Google, and the rest of them. So you can embed that into your Firebase app, right? And you can also set up extra monitoring services like what we call Crashlytics, which is what you use for monitoring what is happening on your application. You can even deploy your Vue or your static web application to Firebase, which we're going to do together. We'll build a very simple page, deploy it on Firebase, test it on Firebase, and I'll show you how these things work live, right? You can embed Google Analytics, yeah, and you can also use it for A/B testing, cloud messaging. You can even use it for push notifications, like the push notifications you get on WhatsApp and the rest of them. You can implement stuff like that using Firebase. If you're a mobile developer, of course, yeah, you can definitely do. You can do a lot with Firebase. Firebase, to me, I think I would describe it as a minified version of Google Cloud, focused on mobile and web development for web developers. So you don't have to face the entire robust cloud service of offering from Google. You can use Firebase to do some of the most important things that you want to do as a mobile or web developer, and that's why we added this to what we'll be covering during the course of this training, right? So Firebase is really interesting. We would create data on Firebase, and using our front end, we will be able to create or delete or even add this set of data to Firebase. And of course, I would give you at the end of the training session, I would give you a bunch of example, right? I already have a bunch of example on Firebase. For CloudFront, and this was gotten from Code Lab, Firebase Code Lab. So there's this Code Lab online that you can access, and then you can check out some of the examples they have. Some of them might be outdated, I'm not sure, but of course I'll check it out again before sharing with you. So you can create cloud functions, so you can call those functions from the code base. You can also create you can do web hosting, right? And you can also work with the database in here. So simply put, you see, we actually have a bunch of platforms using Firebase, of course, as expected. You can always check out the news, the events, the blogs, and we have a bunch of sample code on how to do some of these things, like authenticating a new user with JavaScript, Firebase auth. You're authenticating a new user based on the users that you already have account to the platform, right? So you can perform authentication here, and you see if a user is signed in or not. You can actually perform real-time reading and writing. So you can create you can create something on your Firebase database in the Firestore, and when you write something in there, you can automatically show that stuff on your web application without having to refresh. That's why it's called real-time database, right? So this is an example code based on how to subscribe to a topic. Basically, when you're performing notifications, right? So I have to click on, see, we don't have JavaScript here because, of course, this is mobile based. So if you're writing a mobile application, which we're not doing as front-end guys, but yeah, that functionality is here for notifications, right? So let us leave this for now. This is basically how you would write into your database. It basically works like a NoSQL database, which I would explain to you in the next session better. Yeah. So let's just go to the console and see what it looks like before we end the session for today. Okay. All right, so basically looking at the console, you see I have a sample, test project here. When you want to create a project, all you have to do is to add a new project. I'm not going to do that right now because of time. I'm just going to click on the previous project I have created, to show you what the dashboard for every project looks like. So this is a project I just selected, which is a test project. And yeah, you see what can you do here basically. So when I click on build, you see we have a bunch of functionalities, for authentication. We can actually set up authentication and manage our list of users right here, right? We can also add more multiple sign-in methods. Right now we're using email and password. We can add new providers like Google, Facebook, Apple authentication, GitHub authentication, Microsoft authentication directly from here. And it reduces the amount of code base that you have to write if you want to do that manually. So we see we have a bunch of templates as well that you can automatically, and this template is talking about the email templates, right? So when somebody wants to verify their email, this is the sample template they receive. When you're doing password resets, multi-factor enrollment, SMS notification, you can enable those stuff directly from Firebase. This is you're definitely going to enjoy using Firebase as well as we proceed. What else can we do here? Of course, the Firebase database, which is one of the options we're really going to use. So we create data, we store data in here and we can retrieve them from our application. We don't have any collection right now, but of course you can create a new collection like blog, and then you can start adding documents, right? So documents basically you're saying the item within that blog, right? You've created a collection, let's assume like a folder, and then you have multiple documents within that folder, right? And within that document, you now have what we call fields. So the blog is like the container. The blog, you have a lot of blogs, right? So let's assume we're writing the blog intro, probably intro to just Firebase. But of course, that's you need to end up having like the fields. So, for example, the blog title, which is a string, so we can have introduction to Firebase. And we're going to do this from our code. Not necessarily doing it from here. I'm just showing an example. You can have like who is the author of this item. So let's say let's say who is the what's the body, right? The description. So this is a simple blog, right? And then you can save this and automatically you have a record within your database. So you see we have that record. So you can have multiple records and then you can pull this record down into your code. You can also delete the record, you can delete the collection. So yeah, so you have the collection, you have the document, and you have the records, which is a collection of the several fields, right? So this would make up one document, right? So you can have multiple collections for blog, for maybe comments and stuff like that. And yes, so we are really going to focus a lot on the Firestore database, the hosting, where we have to host static pages, and most of this hosting, you do them for free. You can also integrate and add like your custom domain name, but of course we'll check this out. So we're going to focus on hosting, the database, and the authentication. Because most of the other features you would end up using them if you're doing mobile, right? But I would explain them, just that we won't use them. You can also do storage here, which means you can upload files, right? Videos, music, and those kind of stuff. So this is a very good way to work with the cloud. If you're a beginner working with a cloud service, Firebase is a very good way to start working with some kind of cloud services without having to use things like AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. It's easier and it's a minified version of those things, and it also gives you those analytics and testing features that I think you need if you want to really manage and run a successful website or web app. So we're going to take a look at this, and I hope that this simple introduction or introductory session, yeah, at least made you understand the core functionality of Firebase. So when we work on the example in next. So the next session is basically going to be code heavy, right? We're going to write a lot of code. I would show you how to create this stuff. We'll deploy websites, we'll write functions. So you have to be ready. I'm going to drop an assignment, or I would ask the team, I would share the assignment to the team, and the assignment will be dropped between now and 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So once you get the assignment, you have a period of 5 to 6 days to work on the assignment and submit the assignment. This time around, the assignment will be submitted via a form. We're not going to be submitting via the Comrade bot, because I think a lot of people still have problems submitting their assignment, even though there's a video explaining that. So it's kind of weird, but yeah, we'll work with the form. If you have any question, go ahead and drop. So someone is saying, is Firebase better than Netlify? I mean, they are different. Yeah, so yeah, they're basically different. They are different domains. Netlify is basically Netlify, not Netlify. Netlify is basically for hosting, right? Hosting your web app or website. Firebase gives you more like authentication, like storage, like notification, push notifications, like the database feature, real-time database. So it's way more than Netlify. But of course, you can, if you already know Netlify, you can use Netlify to host while connecting to like a Firebase for database, or for push notification, or for any other service, right? Firebase is free. They have like free packages. Of course, you have to pay after some, to use some features and after some time. But you can host your website absolutely for free. I think forever, right? If it's a very simple website, maybe until you add your custom domain name, that you can start paying for more, as you grow. But of course, you can use it for free, for a lot of things, right? I don't think I've really paid, to use Firebase. Most of my services, though, I don't use Firebase for building like production applications, but that's a personal decision. I know of a lot of production applications running on Firebase that you are even using, right? Most of the apps you use, currently use a lot of Firebase services. So Firebase is free, and they also have payment options, when you start using some services. Okay, so I can see we just have 14 people. I think that should be like 11 people on the call. I'm not impressed with the numbers though, but yeah, that's fine. So if you have any other question, just go ahead and drop your question, and I will see you in the next class. I will give you 3 minutes to ask a question before I end this session. Just 3 minutes. Go ahead and ask a question on the chat. Okay, yeah, welcome, John. Yeah, so if you have any question as regards what I said, for the CSS libraries, also ask a question here.